Thank you everybody for coming along. Just briefly, before we kick off on this victory run, this week Anthony Albanese, the leader of the opposition, made a declaration that 10 years is enough. Enough's enough, bring him home. They got it a bit wrong, it's 11 years going on 12. But it's a great movement in the Australian body politic when the leader of the opposition makes his position known. We now have 24 strong members in the cross-party group in the Australian Parliament. We have in the Bundestag, the Parliament of Germany, we have a cross-party group. In the French Parliament we have a cross-party group. In the Spanish Parliament we have over 40 Podemas members support him. In the UK Parliament we have a cross-party group. The Italian Parliament was the first in the European Parliaments, the five-star group, to put before the Council of Europe a declaration which the Council of Europe adopted, that Julian was a protected journalist and should be let go. The chair of the Human Rights Council of the Council of Europe declared that Julian was protected. Nils Melzer, as you know, the rapporteur on torture, declared that Julian was a victim of torture. The working group, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, declared that Julian was being arbitrarily detained. Every single Western and Russian journalist association have declared Julian a member and that he ought to be freed and that this persecution must stop. Just briefly, a little bit of history. After the horror of the 1945 war, where many people lost their lives and many countries were destroyed, the people of the world, that's us, gathered together and established the United Nations. The first president of the United Nations was an Australian, one of us. In 1948, that president organised the Declaration of Human Rights. The chair of that was Eleanor Roosevelt. In 1958, the Conventions of Asylum were adopted by the United Nations. In 1973, Australia brought before the General Assembly of the United Nations the Conventions of Human Rights and the Conventions of Asylum, which were passed by a huge majority. Then the Council of Europe, which is solely a human rights organisation, 47 nations, I think 42 nations, adopted into their national legislation, the human rights legislation integrated into the national legislation. Now, these are the great achievements of the 20th century. I wish to remind you of that. These are the epoch-making achievements of the people of the world in the 20th century. That's us. When you read the phrase, crimes against humanity, it's not them over there. It's us here, our children, mothers, fathers, uncles, grandfathers, brothers, sisters. A crime against us. When you read the phrase war crime, equally that's a crime against us. A war crime is the murder of a village, like My Lai in Vietnam. 500 people slaughtered before the gunner of a helicopter courageously said, "If you keep shooting these people, we'll shoot you." That brought an end to the slaughter. 500 people. So crimes against humanity and war crimes are crimes against us. Julian's persecution for revealing those crimes is the collapse into barbarity of those nations, those Western nations that were instrumental in putting together the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and adopting it into and embracing it in their national legislation. So it benefits us as an emblem of this decline into barbarity to support Julian, and the benefits then come to us. It's clear. This is our duty, our noble task, is to free Julian, and consequently the political bodies that rule us, that supposedly are sovereign and supposedly obey us, will understand that they cannot pursue any longer the crimes against humanity, the war crimes, and that to obey the legislation which is embraced in their national legislation. Sorry to go on a little bit, it's a heavy subject, but if I could just, one more thing, that I've travelled the world now, last was in America, and the support for Julian from us is a winner. The tide is flowing towards us and lifts us up and lifts our needs up. And our needs are the Universal Declaration of Human Rights be obeyed, and our governments stop sneaking around the place murdering farmers in Afghanistan. So thank you and God bless. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. All right, that just about brings the end to today's send-off, all but one thing, because we leave here straight for the road. We might stop in Brunswick for dinner, but that's it. We're straight on the road from here. Next stop, we're in Broadford, then we're in Castlemaine, Bendigo, Albury, Wagga. I've lost track. We end up in Canberra in a few weeks' time for the opening of the second session of Parliament, where we're going to work with the Australian Parliamentary friends of Julian Assange to try to convince this government to bring Julian home. The last thing we want to do, we're not chanters here, but the last thing we're going to do is we're going to ask everybody to come on this side so we can take a group photo to send to Julian in Belmarsh to let him know that his hometown, the home of WikiLeaks, is sending off his friends and family in his support. So thanks for coming today, and if people who want to be in a photo can just come and stand in front of the bus, in front of the banner here. Thank you all for coming. Stay in touch with social media, Melbourne for WikiLeaks, and we'll talk to you from the road. Thank you.